The Life and Works of Leonardo da Vinci. Renaissance man. Artist, mathematician, inventor, writer. Leonardo's early years. Leonardo was born April 15, 1452, in Da Vinci, Italy. His parents were both unwed. His father was a respected Florence notary, and his mother was a peasant. He was raised by his father and several stepmothers until the age of 5, when he moved in with his grandparents and an uncle. As a young child, Leonardo received little formal education, only receiving the basics in reading, writing, and math. He has showed early talent in art, and he was fascinated in the world around him, especially birds and their ability to fly. Valentino's workshop. In 1466, a 14-year-old Leonardo became an apprentice to one of the most successful artists, known as Valentino. Leonardo would grow there for the next 11 years, learning skills in metalworking, leather crafts, carpentry, drawing, painting, and sculpting. A pen and ink drawing of a landscape in the Nero Valley, done in 1473, would become his earliest known work. The Galls of St. Luke. At age 20, Leonardo received his membership as a master artist in the Florence Galls of St. Luke. He also established his own workshop. Even with all these accomplishments, he continued to work with Valentino for the next 5 years. The Baptism of Christ. The Baptism of Christ was a Valentino painting done in 1472, commissioned by the monks of Florence. This painting was to show the scene where St. John the Baptist baptizes Christ, and according to the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. While working on the portrait, Valentino asked for help from his apprentice, Da Vinci, who painted the angel on the left, holding Christ's draperies. When Valentino saw the talent done by Da Vinci, he was so humbled by the artist that he vowed never to pick up a paintbrush again. The Aberrations of Magi. After leaving Valentino's studio, Da Vinci would receive his first commission, The Aberrations of Magi. In this painting, we see the Virgin Mary and Christ forming a triangle shape around them, kneeling on the Magi's. In the back, you see the figurines, and one of them is actually a self-portrait of Leonardo on the far right. On the left of the painting, you see a broken pagan building and a worker fixing it. On the right are men fighting on horseback around a rocky landscape. Leonardo would leave within a year to go to Milan, leaving this piece unfinished. Behind the painting. It was rumored that Leonardo may have received his inspiration by the medieval legend, the Basilica of Maximus. This legend stated that Romans built the church, and it would stand until the Virgin gave birth. Supposedly, it collapsed the night that Christ was born. However, the building was not built until much later. The ruins, however, are definitely shown throughout the painting, even with the fighting horsemen. The palm trees could have one of two meanings, either meaning Mary, with the phrase, "You are stately as a palm tree," or a symbol of the victory over ancient Rome. The other tree in the painting is a cob family. The seeds were used to measure valuable stones. The seeds suggest crowns, meaning Christ is the King of Kings and Mary is a future Queen of Heaven. Also, this could have been nature's gift to the newborn baby Christ. Leonardo in Milan. 1482. Leonardo was commissioned by the ruler of Florence to go bring peace to Milan. After Leonardo had done this, he wrote to the Duke of Milan, asking for a job, showing more of his military inventions rather than his artwork. These war machines included a war chariot, an armored tank, and a crossbow that would have required a small army of men to operate. Leonardo's work in Milan. Even though, for the most part, during Leonardo's work in Milan, he worked under the Duke, who had different ideas on what Leonardo could offer the court. Leonardo created stage sets, managed gala parties, composed rhymes and riddles and puzzles for the ladies of the courts. He also, however, commissioned two of his masterpieces, The Virgin of the Rocks and The Last Supper, as well as worked on his studies in anatomy, investigations, botany, geology, zoology, physics, and many more. The Virgin of the Rocks. Beginning in 1483, these two paintings on the same subject have only a few differences. One hangs in the Louvre and the other one in the National Gallery. Both paintings show Mary and Christ and an infant St. John the Baptist alongside an angel on a rocky background. The major differences are the hand of the angel and the coloring and lighting of flowers are different as well. Also, this is the first photo that we see Leonardo's from tomato used differently. As far as which one was created first, it still seems to be a mystery. The Last Supper. In 1495, the Duke of Milan commissioned Leonardo to paint The Last Supper. It was done on the back of the dining room on the wall of the Saint Maria delle Gatti in Milan, Italy. The painting captured the moment when Christ turns to his disciples and tells them that one of them will betray him. To the far left, you see a group of 3 of Christ's disciples, looking angry. Next to that group is Judas, holding a bag of silver, and also Mary Magdalene, which has been skeptical on whether or not she was there, since there were only 12 disciples and she was not one of them. And to the right of Christ, there are 3 more disciples who are asking him, "What do you mean?" And the other ones are debating who could do this. Below Christ, we see a doorway, as though we could look into the scene and are invited into the room. Leonardo painted this masterpiece in a fresco style on a drywall rather than a white plaster, which proved to be a mistake, for this picture has been restored so many times throughout history and broke within its original 20 years of being done. The Vitruvian Man. In 1487, the Vitruvian Man came with pen to ink washed over metal point of Leonardo's notebooks. In this piece, you see an understanding of Leonardo's form of the human body. There are 2 men. One you see the legs and the arms, the other one you see the whole body. Both men's torsos and heads seem to be completely covered by each other. You see a circle, and then the geometric forms of the body and the lines of which Leonardo had discovered in the world of science. The Grand Cabriole, the horse that never was. The 24-foot, 15 bronze horse that was to be built to withstand windshield and earthquakes. This horse originally was done in clay and was supposed to be covered by bronze. The Duke had commissioned this horse in 1482 as the largest statue to ever be built. The horse was set in the vineyards close to the castle. Leonardo tried to mold his horse into bronze and form with no success. Unfortunately, since the Duke never took Leonardo's weaponry and castle security seriously, when France attacked Milan, the horse became a target practice, until all that remained was broken mounds of clay and a page in Leonardo's notebooks. The Virgin and the Child with St. Anne. The painting of the Virgin and the Child of St. Anne was commissioned by the Hall Altarpiece for a church in Florence. This photo, you see St. Anne, her daughter, the Virgin, and Christ as an infant. Christ is playing with a lamb's ears, and you see his mother trying to restrain him. This is a theme that has long preoccupied Leonardo. The original sketch, however, is lost to us in time. but this is definitely one masterpiece that Leonardo took his time to create. The Battle of Angadi, the Lost Leonardo. Around October of 1503, the Battle of Angadi was commissioned to be painted in the great Council Hall in Florence. Leonardo was so ambitious to paint this that he decided to try a new technique that would require heat to fix it. However, the morning when he picked up his paintbrush, it rained from 9 o'clock until nightfall. And what we have as a result? We have a vanished masterpiece that could be hidden under the Hall of the 500. The Mona Lisa. This is one of the most photographed pictures still today, as well as one of the most famous art pieces ever done. And is by far the best piece known by Da Vinci. Done in an oil painting on a cotton panel as a surface. Her hands and lips and eyes were done with Leonardo's signature fumetto technique, and it gives this picture a real shadowing effect and a realistic photo of this beautiful masterpiece. Behind the Mona Lisa. No one really knows who the woman in the photograph is. It is rumored to be Lisa de Galli-Duru. It was commissioned by her husband Francisco in 1504, though Leonardo never said who the Mona Lisa was, and the portrait was never given to the family after his death. The theft of the Mona Lisa. In 1911, the Mona Lisa disappeared from the Louvre. Originally, Picasso was on a suspect list and questioned and jailed for the lost Mona Lisa. After 2 years, it was thought to have been lost forever, until 1913, when an Italian patriot, Panagani, was arrested for stealing the painting. After working at the Louvre, he thought that the Mona Lisa belonged in Italy. He tried to sell it to a gallery in Florence, and they found it underneath his bed, luckily unharmed, and the Mona Lisa was returned to the Louvre Gallery, where it sits to this day. The Embryo in the Room. In Leonardo's third volume of his notebooks, we get a drawing of the chamber of an embryo in the room. This gives us a realistic input on his understanding of the human body. Done in 1510 through 1512, this black and white chalk shows us exactly how a fetus would lay in a chamber. He also gave us answers to having multiple chambers if the woman was pregnant with, say, twins or more. The self-portrait. In 1512, while living in France, a 50-year-old Leonardo drew a self-portrait of himself. He thought he'd look like when he was older, say closer to 60. Because of the huge age gap, people often pondered whether or not this red chalk image is really a self-portrait of the great artist. St. John the Baptist. St. John the Baptist was painted during 1513 through 1516. It was to be one of Leonardo's last paintings. By far the most criticized piece of work. In this painting, you see St. John the Baptist pointing up to the heavens, as though to say the importance of the baptismal. However, Leonardo has been critiqued because his arm tends to resemble a woman's arm, and his face and curls tend to resemble the Mona Lisa and St. Anne's smile. The Mechanical Lion. On July 12, 1515, this lion was presented to King Francis by the Pope Leo X. It was to symbolize the closeness between the two kingdoms. The lion symbolized Florence and the lilies were for France. Old age. From September 1513 to 1516, he spent his time living in the Vatican in Rome, where Raphael and Michelangelo were both active at the time. In 1516, Leonardo serviced the king in the manor house, accompanied by his closest friend and apprentice, Count Fresco de Merzar. On April 2nd, 1519, Leonardo passed away, and French legend likes to say that he died in the arms of the king. At his funeral, as requested, there were 60 beggars following his casket. He is buried in the chapel of the Saint Hugo in the castle of Ambros. Leonardo's notebooks showed us all types of things, not only just his weapons and medicine and inventions, but also he had grocery lists, pictures of people's faces, and anything that he just found interesting. Some of Leonardo's great inventions were the parachute, the diving suit, the city of the future, and the helicopter.
Mona Lisa,